Hello everyone, welcome back to the Global Alert TV channel. Please subscribe and like my videos. Today we are going to discuss one of the most alarming and heartbreaking updates coming from Eastern Europe, where the war between Russia and Ukraine continues to evolve in unpredictable and tragic ways. The recent development has been Russia's massive drone and missile strike on Ukraine, which resulted in the deaths of at least 3 civilians and injuries to many others. While at first glance this may seem like another chapter in the ongoing conflict, the depth of the attack, the strategic decisions behind it, and the implications for both the people directly affected and the wider world make it a situation worth reviewing in detail. To make the analysis easier to understand, we will think of the incident as if it were a product being examined, with different aspects like the exterior, the interior, the performance, the safety features, the unique selling points, the price, and finally the conclusion. This way, we can dig deeper into both the visible surface and the hidden layers of the attack, just like a thorough review of a complex machine that touches multiple aspects of life. The exterior of this incident can be understood as the visible side of the strike. From the outside, what the world saw was a sudden and dramatic barrage of unmanned aerial vehicles combined with cruise and ballistic missiles that lit up the night sky over several Ukrainian cities. The Russian military launched an overwhelming combination of firepower, with reports suggesting more than 580 drones and around 40 missiles being used in a coordinated operation. To those watching from the outside, whether it be civilians hearing the sirens in Kyiv, international journalists observing from safe zones, or analysts reviewing satellite footage, the sheer magnitude of the assault created an image of overwhelming aggression. The exterior is about the surface impression, and in this case, it was a calculated demonstration of might, designed to send a message both to Ukraine and to the international community. Explosions rocked residential neighborhoods, air defense systems were visibly engaged, and civilians scrambled for shelters. The visual impact of burning debris, shattered windows, and flaming buildings created a powerful exterior portrait of destruction and chaos. This exterior view was intended to be intimidating, and on the surface, it did just that. Yet beneath this outer layer lies the interior, which is far more complex and crucial to understanding the full picture. Inside this attack is the hidden structure of intent, planning, logistics, and the real lives of the people affected. The interior is where we find the human stories. Families waking in the middle of the night to the sound of air raid sirens, children clutching their parents as they rush into basements, elderly citizens unable to move quickly enough to safety, and emergency responders risking their lives to pull survivors from rubble. The interior is not just about the visible explosion but about the networks of supply chains that provided Russia with the capacity to launch such a large-scale attack, the intelligence reports that guided the targeting, and the air defense batteries in Ukraine that scrambled to respond. This layer reveals the vulnerability of energy grids, hospitals, and civilian infrastructure that sit behind the walls of cities, hidden until moments like these expose them. More than anything, the interior of the story is about the emotional and psychological scars that such attacks carve into the hearts of ordinary people. It is about the fear that lingers long after the explosions stop, the despair of losing loved ones, and the resilience required to rebuild homes and communities. Just as when reviewing the interior of a vehicle or a structure we pay attention to comfort, design, and hidden engineering, in this case the interior of the strike is about the unseen suffering and the hidden strategies that fuel the surface-level destruction. It is bigger, more complicated, and far more emotional than the exterior alone. Looking at performance, we need to analyze how effective the attack was from a purely military perspective. Performance is judged by goals versus outcomes. Russia launched this strike presumably to weaken Ukrainian defenses, damage critical infrastructure, and send a psychological shockwave through the population. In terms of performance, the assault succeeded in creating fear, in causing damage to civilian infrastructure, and in demonstrating that Russia still has the capacity to coordinate large-scale operations despite sanctions and logistical challenges. However, performance must also be weighed against efficiency. Ukrainian forces reported that their air defense systems intercepted a majority of the drones and missiles, preventing far greater damage and casualties. The performance, therefore, can be seen as impressive in scale but less efficient in results, as the cost of deploying hundreds of drones and dozens of missiles only resulted in limited long-term damage. From a performance review standpoint, Russia showcased firepower but also exposed the growing resilience and preparedness of Ukraine's defense systems, which are constantly being supplied and upgraded by Western allies. The balance of performance here is one of show versus substance. When we think about safety features, in a tragic twist, we have to interpret them as the protective systems and measures in place to safeguard people from harm during such attacks. Ukraine's safety features came in the form of air raid sirens, early warning systems, and above all, the air defense networks that intercepted much of the incoming fire. Civilians sheltered in underground bunkers and metro stations, which acted as safety capsules in a storm of destruction. The presence of trained rescue teams, medical responders, and the resilience of hospitals to switch to backup generators all formed part of the safety system that tried to protect lives when missiles rained down. However, no safety features can be perfect in the face of such overwhelming firepower, and the fact that 3 civilians still lost their lives shows the limits of human protection systems when confronted by relentless military aggression. From the Russian perspective, the lack of safety consideration is also a feature worth mentioning. There were no visible efforts to avoid civilian casualties, no deliberate attempt to focus solely on military targets, which reveals the absence of ethical safety standards in the design of the strike. Thus, the safety review highlights both the strengths of Ukrainian preparedness and the cruelty of the attack's intent. The unique selling points of this attack, if we were to interpret the military logic, are rooted in scale and psychological impact. The sheer number of drones and missiles used in one coordinated strike is a demonstration of Russia's continued military capacity, even after months of attrition and international sanctions. This scale sets it apart from smaller, more targeted operations. Another unique aspect is the timing and the psychological strategy behind the attack. Launching such a massive wave in the night ensured maximum fear and disruption of civilian life. The use of drones also adds to the distinctiveness, as drones are cheaper, easier to deploy, and harder to detect, making them a preferred weapon in modern hybrid warfare. The selling point here is intimidation, sending a message that Russia can still escalate at will, despite international condemnation. On the Ukrainian side, however, there is also a unique selling point: their ability to withstand such an assault with relatively low casualties compared to what might have been expected. This resilience itself has become a defining feature of Ukraine's defense. Price is always a factor in any review, and in this case, the price is measured in multiple currencies: financial, political, and above all, human lives. Financially, launching hundreds of drones and dozens of missiles is costly, draining Russia's already strained resources. Politically, the price is increased condemnation, potential for tighter sanctions, and further alienation from the international community. The human price, however, is the most heartbreaking: 3 innocent lives lost, families destroyed, children traumatized, and entire communities left scarred. Ukraine also pays a price by exhausting its air defense ammunition, by diverting resources to emergency responses, and by facing constant disruption to its economy and civilian life. The price, therefore, is enormous and multi-layered, and it continues to grow with every strike that prolongs the conflict rather than bringing it closer to resolution. In conclusion, this strike represents both the continuing brutality of the war and the resilience of those who endure it. The exterior showed us a terrifying spectacle of explosions, the interior revealed the hidden suffering of families and the logistical machinery behind the attack. The performance demonstrated both Russian aggression and Ukrainian defense strength. The safety features highlighted human resilience against impossible odds, the unique selling points showed the scale and psychological impact, and the price reminded us of the devastating costs of war. The conclusion must be that such attacks achieve little in the way of real strategic progress but continue to inflict unbearable pain on ordinary people. For the global audience, the takeaway is clear: the conflict is far from over, the humanitarian toll is immense, and the need for meaningful resolution has never been greater. While Russia may believe these strikes showcase power, what they really reveal is the depth of suffering and the unbreakable resilience of the human spirit in Ukraine. This is the review of a tragedy that should never have been manufactured in the first place, a reminder that war has no winners, only survivors carrying the scars forward. And as we close this discussion, remember to stay informed, stay compassionate, and continue to support the values of peace and humanity in a world that too often forgets them.